good morning, ladies and gentlemen, or should I say Kalimera. Thank you, Leon, for that thought-provoking presentation, thesis and antithesis. I'm sure we've got plenty to get stuck into in the conversation to come. Thanks also to Vasilios, Alexandra, Maria, Dania, and all the team for inviting us to be here. Before I hand over to Serdar to tell us a bit more about Slow, I'd just like to give a very quick introduction to myself. I'm Matt Turner, Editor-in-Chief of Sleeper Media. You can check out Sleeper Media at sleepermedia.com. I don't particularly want to talk to you too much about Sleeper. I want to talk to you very quickly about my scarf, or more specifically, why I'm here with you today. I was very excited when I got the invitation through to come here for three main reasons, I guess. First and foremost, I've never been to Athens before, so this is my first time in this exciting, vibrant city, so it's great to have the excuse to be here. Secondly, when I got the draft program through, I looked at it and thought, well, that's basically just all of my friends in hospitality and design in Greece, all gathered together in one place. So it's great to have the chance to catch up with everyone. But what really caught my attention, and I think what was really sealed the deal, was when I looked at the Hotel Experience website, and the first thing that came up in front of my eyes was this same pattern that you can see on this scarf here, and very similar to this one here. I'm going to do the first bit of audience participation, as I don't think we've had any yet. Does anyone know what this pattern on the scarf that you might have seen elsewhere in the exhibition is? Anyone? Bueller? No, I'll tell you then. It's actually the pattern from the carpet in the Stanley Kubrick film, The Shining.
And the carpet at the Brown Acropole, by the way, done by K-Studio, Dimitris from K-Studio.
Is also, I'll come back to in a moment. And this pattern seems to have followed me around throughout my career. If you actually look back, if you look on my LinkedIn profile or on the bio here, I've got this scarf on. I don't wear it all the time, by the way. It's not like surgically attached or anything. If you look at my Twitter bio, this shows how long it is since I've been on Twitter. It's the picture of Danny, who is the kid in the film The Shining, who rides his tricycle up and down the corridor with the same pattern. You probably can't see it, but on the back of this notebook here, it's the exact same pattern.
Wow.
So it already felt like a bit of fate and destiny that I should come and be here. And then I checked into Leon's hotel a couple of nights ago, and unfortunately I don't have a slide to show you up here, but I walked into the event space, and what's there but a huge patterned carpet with the exact same pattern.
Yeah.
So there you go. And I don't know if any of you have had the chance to wander around the exhibition as yet, but I highly recommend that you do so, and if you go and have a look there, you'll see even more of the same carpet. Anyway, that's more than enough about me. Now to just introduce you to our next guest, Serdar Katucu from Slowness. I think, Leon's obviously had the floor for a few minutes, so Serdar's just going to take a few quick moments just to tell us a bit more about Slow, the company, and the concept.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here. I didn't know so many things about you, that you have a full story on different social media. It's interesting. After 15 years, we know.
Exactly. Full of surprises.
Well, some things have been mentioned already. So my background, or our background, is in decades of working with change makers, actually, in the world of hospitality. And that's a driving force to motivate for new experiences. This is the source of inspiration, how Slowness has come alive, and we're building a collective of people, of places and projects, and we're really going into a discourse of how we travel, how we live, and how we work, and especially how we come together. The base is mainly in Berlin, so the main project we are currently developing and expecting to open in its second phase next year, some parts already opened, is called Flussbad. Do I have some slides
here? Maybe.
Oh, fantastic! All right, that's supporting me. Great. This is a former river bath which was built between the first and the second. Oh, it was built after the First World War, and then it closed with the Second World War. And we're regenerating this whole land of 1 hectare riverfront into a creative campus with 12,000 square meter total built in old and new, which will host office spaces, rooms, of course, restaurants, and art and performance space, a longevity health lab, an auditorium, and co-working spaces. So it's kind of a mix of things. So we don't call it hotel necessarily. And I'm using this project as an example which very well describes what we're doing, creating platforms for curated experiences around health, culture, arts, education, and knowledge. And similar to what we do in Berlin, we have a project in Portugal, so we choose those 2 destinations for the time being, where the main project is the reactivation of a farm that sits on a 100-hectare oceanfront land. And the concept here is less about permanent working, but it's about permanent living, so it's housing and hospitality, but including also work studios. We're building a house of crafts of Portuguese craftsmanship and a health lab again, etc., with 60 keys. Well, this is where we're focusing on, and other projects are development of a health-focused resort in south of Germany, south of at Lake Tegernsee, and a collaboration with the Wonder Fruit Festival in Thailand, which is a very exciting one. So we are creating experiments around the ideas of hospitality, and we always did some of this stuff and continuing to really push the boundaries of what could be the next thing to happen in the world of hospitality. And given the background, all of this is combined with a new curated platform of travel experiences that we're bringing together all of these people, these change makers, how I like to call them, around the world, to continue the discussion of how we can shape the future of what's this industry to be. Mm-hmm. Sorry, that was long.
Thank you. No, that was perfect. And I have to say, the title of this conversation is Shifting Paradigms, and I often get asked the question, what's next? What's going to be the next big shift in hospitality? And I often direct them to the Slowness website if they want a bit of an idea. But I'd like to start, if I may, with, I guess, maybe a slightly provocative, contentious statement, and I think it relates back to what Leon was talking about just a few moments ago. Has there really been any genuine innovation, a real paradigm shift in hospitality in the past 60, 70 years? Because I think, if you can go back to, as Leon mentioned, the advent of the branded international hotel, I think that was one of the last big genuine shifts and innovations. And it was interesting to do the dinner last night in the shadow of the Hilton Athens, which is, I think, the first branded hotel in Greece. One of Hilton's first hotels outside the US. So that was a real, genuine, I think, fundamental shift. And also, you could certainly argue that the advent of the boutique hotel, was a similarly kind of transformational happening in hotels. But even that now was 30, 40 years ago. Morgan's opened in the 80s. Has there really been any genuine innovation, would you say, since then? And maybe I'll ask that question of Leon, first of all.
Very difficult question.
Sorry.
Why should I be the first one? I'm saying, I think the last 30 years, 40 years were transformative to our industry. I still remember being a front desk manager working with cards. This is how old I am. Before the internet. And I think that the digital innovation, AI, robotics, everything was so instrumental in changing the industry. However, I think that, and we talked about it yesterday, Sada, I think that what Slow are doing, and just being more emotional, experiential, giving out more of yourself, being more fluid, not only doing one sort of hotels or one sort of hospitality. Everything is allowed. So the canvas is unbelievable. Anyone can do anything, which is a revolution. You can come with your dog, with your pet to a hotel. You can sit on your bed and do whatever you want. You can, nowadays when our rooms and our TVs in our bedrooms are so big and everything is so comfy, we as hoteliers, we should be much more interesting, exciting, inspiring, rather than just providing good bed and breakfast.
Right, okay. Because that was going to be really my next question. Do we really need like a paradigm shift, or isn't hospitality at heart? People want a good night's sleep, you know, a decent meal at an affordable price. Serdar, do you think there's more to hospitality than that?
I'm not sure if paradigm shift is the right word to use, but I think, you know, there's two things coming together, or three things actually. Yeah. One is the evolution of hospitality in terms of how we run hotels. Of course, there is lots of transformation. But actually, I believe, 60, 70 years is quite a long time, but let's look into the last 20 to 30 years, and I don't think there was so much innovation, in my opinion. And I think it's more of an evolution of things, but I look at it from a guest point of view, and I think the one thing that really made us all surprised, like how can this be, was Citizen M allowing people to check in themselves. So that's kind of a really innovative change in the guest experience. But more importantly, I think it's how people connect to these places. You know, every entrepreneur in the hospitality is fighting two challenges. One is like finding the right talents and retain them, and the second thing is building loyalty with their customers. Right? That's why all the chains have their loyalty programs by points, etc., etc. And I think another way to build this engagement with the people is through content. And you talked about the evolution of, or the beginning of the designed hotels, you know, from Ian Schrager's, from Studio 54, the club goes into a hotel, the Paramount Hotel, etc., and then it swept over to Europe and design hotels. I think we have contributed. So design was a connection to it, right? So it was still bed and breakfast, let's say, but there was something which connected the people and also the like-minded. And this then has continued in topics of purpose-driven travel, of sustainability, etc. So, we're today at a point, and I'm sure we are in the niche, and we're not doing hotels for travelers only, because we're placemakers in the destinations that we connect with the local communities as well. Mm-hmm. But we believe that hospitality can be very impactful and can be a force for good. So this experience can really help people being inspired for actually living a healthier, happier life, maybe. Mm-hmm. And that's something which we really put on our flag internally to really create an ambitious goal of helping people to maybe be surprised or learn or just be inspired by the way we design the guest experience, which is another connection to build an experience. And I believe this niche will grow very fast.
Yeah. And do you think we're just living in a world now of multiple niches, like, hyper-individualized experiences, customization, as opposed to, I guess, if, going back to the Hilton example, the whole idea really behind that was it was a consistent mass market product that appealed to a very broad base. Do you think now hospitality has become much more kind of fragmented and segmented?
I'm not sure. There is two things. There are motives of traveling. So if I go for a 3-day trip to Athens, coming to a conference, I have different choices for my place of stays than if I go for a long weekend with my wife or I go on holidays with my friends, etc. Sure. So I think different motives can change what experience we're looking at. And the fragmentation comes obviously, sadly, we are again dealing with over-tourism. We're again dealing with lots of challenges, infrastructural challenges in many destinations in the world of how we deal with business and leisure travel. And it will bring diversity from price levels to subjective taste to many things.
Yeah. Leon?
It's not, the canvas is the story here. The fact that we have so many opportunities and the segmentation is so diverse. You can do whatever you want to whoever you want. You can be yourself. You come to a hotel, you don't, sometimes when you go to a 3 stars Michelin restaurant, you sit and you're afraid that you break something or that you do something awkward. And nowadays it's all about linen. Mm-hmm. It's all about being comfy and being good in your skin, bien dans ta peau, you say in French. Okay. You're doing whoever you are, and you choose the hotel according to the mood. Sometimes it's not a hotel. Sometimes it's couch surfing, and sometimes you go, I love seeing cool hotels when I see people going with just t-shirt, Havaianas flip-flops and the most expensive, I don't know, Zadig and Voltaire kind of a bag, or
Right.
Prada bag, or like, so this multi-culti, upstairs, downstairs, cheap and expensive, old and new, this is, you just do it according to your mood, and the various hoteliers and designers are just doing their own, their own hotels, so many brands, like Puma, like Adidas, like Nike are thinking now of their own hotels. And it's wonderful. It's another way of expressing oneself.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that you mentioned Citizen M briefly earlier, because I was being deliberately argumentative maybe by saying there's not really been any innovation in that period of time, but I would agree that Citizen M was probably one of the most significant kind of innovative new concepts to come on the market in recent years. And I think, you mentioned about the automated check-in, but I think one of the really interesting things that Citizen M also did was, as well as automating the check-in, they managed to break down the barrier between staff and guests, because rather than having a member of staff sat behind an imposing front desk, there would still be members of staff sat around to kind of help guests check in. Do you think that blurring of boundary and breaking down of barrier between staff and guests is something that can create a new, a new dynamic, a new paradigm in hospitality? Or do guests just want to be left alone and have staff that look after them?
You have that too, of course. But I mean, interesting evolution I have seen in my professional career in design hotels, which was a niche product in the end. So it was when I joined in 2008, we had around 150 hotels in the portfolio, and the average size was around 80 rooms. And when I left early 2020, it was over 300 hotels and an average size of 65 rooms. So what we've seen is that the hotels have become smaller. I mean, the boutique term is completely overused, but in general, to provide a personal experience is obviously better achieved throughout the year, important point, in a smaller scale of a hotel than in a bigger scale of hotel. And it's also much easier to have less staff being briefed for a deeper engagement than more stuff, of course. So basically, I mean, we had this place in Ibiza called La Grancia, and we had the point that everyone who was...
well.
Yeah, true, we had a sleeper session. Yeah. Everyone who was front of house, like, from waiters, barmen, to everyone in the front, was able to host and give everyone any kind of guidance. So it was beautiful, because it never felt like a hotel anymore. It felt like you're in a private house.
Yeah, it's more like a guest
But this
house.
is a 11 room.
You can only do that on that scale, right?
So we had
Leon,
30
how do you manage to do that in properties of your
We're
scale?
really,
Is it possible?
Really trying. So we have job descriptions such as director of good times,
Right.
or lobby ambassador,
I want that.
or hotels diva. We have an Afeli. We have a girl that is amazing, and she's our diva. And on her business card, she's the hotel's diva. And I think that this is really important, to have a diva in a hotel, in a big hotel, or director of good
And
times.
preferably not the owner or the interior designer.
She's amazing. She's amazing, and she's floating. But when you talk about good times, we love to be part of the city. So we do sponsoring of the Art Atina, Biennale, Comic Museum, Comic Festival, Gay Pride, the Christmas market in Omonia, Platia Omonia. So for us, being part of this and not being so, I'm standing behind the desk and you're the guest, I'm the host. We don't like the word staff.
Yeah, I mean, that was certainly something that I wanted to touch upon, and I think it's kind of in the overview of this session was the idea of community collaborations, and I think that's a slightly different thing from breaking down the barrier between staff and guests. It's more breaking down the barrier between a hotel and its surroundings, its environment. I know that's something that's very much at the heart of what you do with Slow Serdar. Can you maybe give the audience some examples of some community collaborations that you've engaged in? Leon just mentioned his.
Well, I mean, as Leon says, you know, it's important. I mean, in my personal opinion, hotels that have been most successful have been those that have been well connected in their local environment. We're talking city hotels especially, but also even in the leisure environment. So, I mean, we do things like with Flussbad in Berlin, where we have only one space open. We have been part of the Berlin Art Week as an official location, being a supporter of that. Where we're like, you know, it's a bit of the challenge that we face with delays in the construction, that we have a space open while others are not. We just said, let's experiment, and every last Sunday of the month, we call it open house. So we allow everyone to come free of charge. Every month we have a different listening program in the space, and we have you know, guests coming every week, every month of like 800 to 1,000 people.
Wow, right.
So we've done,
And
I
that's
think, like,
advertising, marketing.
that's advertising, of course. You know, you familiarize people with the projects that you're doing, with the spaces, but it's also inviting, you know, embracing the local community to allow them be part of this whole thing. Or in Portugal, you know, just seeing this picture, we bought this land, and the first thing we did was it took us 2 years to reactivate the soil to start farming again, of course permaculture, and now we are having an organic farming certificate. We go to farmers markets, we do workshops on the farm, etc. I think it's very important. I mean, there's a long list of ideas.
Yeah, I mean, it just occurred to me, you know, a lot of your projects have opened organically in the sense that it's not necessarily like a hotel where you know, you've got contracts on site and you build a big building and you wait till everything's in and finished and perfect, hopefully, and then, you know, you open the doors and welcome in guests. Your earlier projects were effectively pop-ups, where they just popped up, and they were never intended to be necessarily permanent buildings, but some of them popped up and stayed up longer than planned. Does that give you an opportunity to experiment and kind of test the market as you go along
100%.
Before you really get into full-scale operation?
100%, yeah. I mean, we are, like, you know, both, like my partner Klaus as me, we have actually we had more experience before Design Hotels in events.
Right,
I was an event manager, from clubbings to any kind of. So the pop-ups come a little bit with that.
Yeah.
And the impromptu reaction and the agile approach on things is really giving you a lot of experimenting, ideas, learning. And you know what, I'm looking at you because I remember when I came to the Brown Hotel in Tel Aviv, you know, it was also a first phase, but you, instead of calling it a problem, you actually made it an opportunity, allowing people to experience the city by going and having breakfast in the most beautiful cafes in the neighborhood because the breakfast room wasn't ready yet, right?
Be a local.
I think that's very, I mean, that's entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And people, if you creatively overcome the challenge, the obstacle can actually become something very interesting, yes.
Yeah.
I think that Serdar is being humble because about 20, 25 years ago, they actually were super revolutionary in the sense of finding the design so imperative to the essence, and then the community, and then the content in Design Hotels. And then when you did the San Giorgio in Mykonos, you were the revolutionary of the earthy granite, straw kind of theme of flow and immerse in the nature. And now you're doing those beautiful project farming. I do not always understand how the money follow you guys and how do you actually make money, but I admire you. But I admire you for being the pivot of the change, because everybody and generations of hoteliers followed San Giorgio and what you guys done back in Mykonos, and everybody wants now a Myconian design and granite, and everybody wants the same. And you've done it so many times that I salute you, because I don't always understand, but I know that this is it. You know?
But it's a very good example, because I mean that place, I mean, we had multiple of these projects, but this one especially was an unexpected opportunity for the people that have taken over this property, and they, you know, were looking for a collaboration and doing a collaborative experiment, let's say, and it was literally planned to be for one season only, but it stayed for 7 years. And it was, I mean, everyone has a different definition of luxury, and it's very subjective, and mine is different than yours, and etc. We may have similarities, but bottom line, the experience we created at San Giorgio was not of creating a luxurious property in the terms of the quality of it. It was a styling job, let's be honest. It was a paint job, how I call it. But the atmosphere that it created was giving a luxury to people that they so much enjoyed. And you know, the place has quadrupled the rate through a little rework of the space.
But then this is the challenge. When you want it to be accessible to all, now you have to know someone to get into the party.
I mean, just a brief last question, if I may, because I know we're quite pushed for time. But I wanted to bring it briefly just back to design, because it used to be that all anyone talked about at these conferences was design, you know, architecture, whereas now it seems to have almost gone the opposite way, where everyone talks about experience and programming and content. Is the design still important? Because that was probably the driver of the last significant shift in terms of boutique hotels. And, you know, this is kind of my closing question to you, but should the hotels of the future be looking like hotels of the future, or should they be looking more like the hotels of the past? Because you took a very retro approach in your design, brown hotels here, almost like mid-century kind of 70s. If you look at, you know, Scorpios and many of your other projects, it's a real sort of rustic, back to basics natural design rather than a futuristic space age design. So should the hotels of the future look more like The Shining or 2001: A Space Odyssey? Discuss.
You start?
You start.
I don't know. I'm trying to work and to be uplifted by the best people in every place I'm in. We're working with Liakos, with Elastic, with K-Studio, with USP, with the most inspiring people in the industry, with Serdar and with such colleagues. So I'm trying to be inspired by them. And in the end, we do need a good bed and a good bedding and a really good shower. Once you've hit this minimum criteria of really good breakfast, really good shower experience, really good bedding and sleep experience, now we can play. Now we can, you know, fly and do whatever we want and enjoy life and be very personal in the experience we would like to offer to our guests.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, I think that brings us to the end of our time. I could chat all day with you both, but if you'll join me now,
we can stay and chat all day.
Thank you for your time. Cheers, Serdar. Thank you, man.
Thank you very, very much.
Leon.
Thank you. Thank you very much.